Hello there everybody, this is Kristen. Welcome back to the Krista Chronicles. Today we are doing a VR, which, oh my gosh, I feel like I haven't done a VR in a million years. I love these so much. This is a new tag put out by Kate from Moonflower Moments. I'll link her channel below with her video. So good. I am such a huge fan of hers. I really like the way it seems like she really kind of just pauses to think about everything and like what everything means to her. She's very thoughtful. I think that's a good word. You know, at least as I perceive from, no. I'm gonna say she's definitely a thoughtful person. I was gonna say as I perceive through the videos, but you can just tell. You can tell that extends to the rest of her life. Anyways, so we've got 12 questions here today, and we're talking about just decks I've been grateful for throughout this last year. And I think that's all the preamble we need, so let's get started. Excuse this shadow here. I have everything written down in a notebook, and I want it right there. But it's creating a shadow. Oh well. Okay. So, question number one, or prompt number one, I should say. The deck that has stood by my side through my darkest moments. I don't think we're gonna be surprised. Any guesses? It's the Grief Journey Oracle. Now I know this came in the last 2 months of the year, but the impact that it has had, I can't ignore. And when I'm thinking about the darkest moment of my year, there is no doubt in my mind it is Stevie passing. That just left such a hole in my life. It was unexpected. Not my first experience with pet death, but I've only ever experienced the death of like my childhood pet growing up. This is the first time it was a pet that like is in my care. The pet is mine as an adult. And yeah, it was a lot to navigate, because I'm sure probably all of you watching with pets are the same, but in my family, we were very much raised to treat our pets, one, like they're family members, but beyond that, like they are babies. Human babies are baby children. Like even though my mom had 3 daughters, our dog growing up was always our sister. That's how she would refer to her, that's your sister. And so that is absolutely something I have adopted in how I treat my pets, and so it felt like losing a family member. And it was. I don't even want to say it felt like, it was. And so that was, for sure, the darkest moment, and this deck came in like 2 days after that happened, and it was just perfect timing, because if it had came in the same day, I don't think I would have touched it. Because I don't know about all of you, but it seems like my grief method is I need like 2 business days to just completely try and ignore the feelings. That was it was just distract for 2 days, and then it was like, okay, let's get into this. And once I was ready to kind of get into it, that's when this deck came, and it just felt so magical and aligned. And oh my gosh, I think this might be the first week that I haven't pulled a card every single day, but I've still, every few days now, but there's a few weeks where it was every single day, and this deck really just, I don't know what I would have done without it. It helped so much. So that is definitely the deck that stood by my side through my darkest moments, and that is the Grief Journey Oracle. It is available now. I think maybe I had it in another video and people were saying they wish they backed it on Kickstarter. I'll have the links to all these decks below, but it seemed to me that you could buy a copy right now. So, yes, exciting. Okay. Prompt number 2. The deck that has told me the hardest truths. When I was thinking about this prompt, I don't know. I really thought about this one for a long time because I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like a lot of my decks really tell me a lot of truths, like the hardest truths. And where my brain landed was very interesting to me. It's the Little Frog's Guide to Self-Care. Because it's a very positive deck. At first I was thinking like, gosh, I gotta think of something. Ooh. Oh, sorry, I thought my computer was gonna make a noise. Anyway, I gotta think of like my shadowy decks and stuff like that, but I haven't really used those this year. And it's sort of making me wonder, like, is using something really like dark and deep in that way actually the way I get to the heart of the things I'm trying to work through? I don't actually know if that's the case. So, Little Frog's Guide to Self-Care. I use this so much, especially when I first got it, but this spring and summer, this was my gal. And so why I landed here, in terms of it telling me the hardest truths, is I have found sometimes using a deck that is affirmations, essentially, often are the decks that tend to call me out the most. And so often how I took these cards is whatever the message that was coming up, often it would really feel like a call out of, you're not doing this at all. Like today I will find the sweetness in the little things. When I was using this, if a card like this came up, it was probably because I was just being a negative Nancy. My body works so hard for me. I know this card came up because often I am working through a lot of like body image issues, and so this felt like a call out of like, hello, you're forgetting. I will let go of self-limiting beliefs. Probably I was really caught up in self-limiting beliefs. So it's just interesting because something like an affirmation deck, I think, totally has the rap of being like light and fluffy and things like that, and they never quite tend to work out that way for me. And I really think probably this is definitely, it's not unique to me. I think it just depends on how you are reading it. And often when I read these messages, my brain isn't taking it as like, okay, this is just my goal for the day. It's taking it as like oh wow, I've not been doing that. And that's a problem. And so yeah, and I kind of love that these little frogs with mushroom hats and sassy little shoes were telling me the hardest truths this year. So yes, that's my answer. Little Frog's Guide to Self-Care. I love this deck, it's so good. Number 3. The deck that gave me language for my feelings. The Heart Align Affirmations Oracle, again, with the affirmation deck. I find this one really interesting, though, because it is one that, when I am having a particularly hard time, I'll keep it with me. Like if I'm on the couch, it'll go in my work bag. Like I just take it with me everywhere. And it has this spot gloss heart that is supposed to kind of be like a sensory thing of kind of like, I don't know, you can almost like physically feel like you're holding that message. And there's so many cards in here, and often what am I trying to explain? I tend to, when it giving me the language for my feelings, that is something that is very important for me, and a big way that tarot, but I'm going to say specifically oracle, has really become a tool for me is that I really often have a lot of trouble identifying that I am even feeling a certain way. And so I can recognize, like, okay, I'm getting like really frustrated right now and I feel like I could cry or something like that, but it takes me a really long time to make the connection of why. Why is that happening? What is the feeling I'm having? I forget the word for that. There's a word for that. But it has to deal with the neurodivergence. And so I have found that pulling a card from here really helps me to get there faster. It gives me the words I need to make the connection of like physical feeling to emotional feeling. And even if in the rare cases it doesn't, it gives me something to focus on to just calm down. Like this card here where it just says, you are safe. If I were to pull that card in one of those moments, it kind of prompts me to be like, okay, there is, for some reason, I'm not feeling safe in this current moment. Like something is not right in my environment. Yeah, I don't know, this feels like it really does give me the language I need, and if it doesn't, it just is a good tool to kind of pause and reflect instead of kind of being so caught up in the physical feeling of the emotion that I can actually work through, okay, what is it that's actually happening here? So, Heart Align Oracle. Love that little guy. Apologies if I'm pausing. I'm also simultaneously trying to drink my morning tea. Okay. Number 4, the deck that opened my eyes to what I could be. Such interesting prompts. They're so interesting. My answer for this one is the Mysteries of Mary Tarot. How do I want to explain, like, the why? This year, well, kind of like part of last year into this year, had really gotten into an interest of Mary and Mary Magdalene, which is something that I avoided for a very long time as a, what do you want to call it? Raised Catholic person-ish. I'm gonna use the word ish, because, like, my family never really took it seriously. Just wanted us to, like, go through the motions of it. But regardless, even going through the motions of it, like, it being exposed to that from a young age, I had weird feelings around anything to do with that. And so when that interest came up, it was very like, I don't know. And then when I was interested in getting this deck, it was like, I don't know though, like, can I work with Mary? And this deck has really given me the perspective through the incredible guidebook. It is so good, it is so researched, and it really spends time showing how often Mary is kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of different goddess stories, kind of reflected through this one. And the creator makes those connections in the guidebook and kind of makes connections to different stories, and the way it, like, really specifically highlights the power of Mary instead of the way I learned about her as kind of this secondary, kind of submissive figure. it has changed the game. And so in terms of like open my eyes to what I could be, I think taking that abstractly, it kind of showed me that I am allowed to reshape things for myself, and that is possible. There are multiple sides to every story. I think Mary's included. And I think before this too, I was someone who, I didn't, spiritual connection was not something that was easy for me, and I'm not going to say that it is now, but it's easier. And I think because I just was like so turned off by anything in that realm just because of that influence growing up. And so this also really changed the game in that way too, of like, no, I can make of this what I want. I can get from this what I need and I want. And this is the deck that just, it really showed me that. And I've loved it for that. So, Mysteries of Mary Tarot. Fantastic. Okay. Number 5. The deck that dared me to live. I wish I wrote down what I was thinking exactly when I selected these decks, because I know like I had very specific ideas. I'm not remembering them. But my answer for this one, the deck that dared me to live, the Sassy Dragons Tarot. I should have pulled out the safe for work one, but that is, I keep that one by my gaming setup because I just like using it over there. So this is the not safe for work. Hopefully nothing, I don't know, it's not anything that crazy. I mean, well, anyway, warning, I guess. As the deck that dared me to live. Oh, okay, no, I remember why. The reason I chose this is because my experience of using this deck and really getting to know it is, my big takeaway from it was there is no need to take anything too seriously. You just don't have to. And that is a concept I often have trouble with, despite that being something I have, like, I for a long time have firmly believed. Actually executing it can be difficult, and so I find this to be a fantastic deck to go to when I'm getting really wound up about something, when I'm overthinking something. Pulling a card from here and just getting that sassy dragon message every single time, it brings me down from that kind of heightened stress and reminds me, like, nothing is that serious unless you want it to be, and it's positive for it to be. It's gonna be fine. I have found this to be a fantastic tool for that. And I love that it's quick, you get the message right on the card. And so, anxiety and overthinking, especially when it comes to social scenarios, is something that really inhibits me from getting out of my comfort zone, socializing at all. I have a fear around socializing, big time. And sometimes it's worse than other times, and in those times where I feel that it's getting bad, this deck really helps me through that. Just to give me the lens of, like, it's gonna be okay. I have proof that I'm gonna be okay afterwards. You know what I mean? And so I just love it for that. And so it's dared me to live in that sense. So, Sassy Dragons Tarot. All right. The deck where am I? The deck that celebrated my biggest victory. That is the Unicorn's Journey Tarot. We got back-to-back. Papezes. Where do I even want to begin with my thoughts around this? With my biggest victory. Because, okay, so I think my biggest victory of the year has been the extent to which I have been able to personally unmask just with myself and in my own home, and how I have started to do so around others. That has been a huge thing this year. And also just accommodating myself more and asking for accommodations has been a really hard thing this year, but something I've done and something I'm really proud of. It's still a work in progress, of course, and I'm sure it always will be, but I feel like I've just made really huge strides, specifically with accommodating myself. But something else I did do this year was ask for some at work. Nothing big, nothing crazy, but just communicating honestly that things like changing my schedule is really difficult for me. So, like, if we can minimize that as much as possible, and just how nice everyone's been about it. I don't know. And while I was sort of working through those things, this is the deck I used. And a deck that has really helped me work through a lot of shame I hold around it, a lot of internalized ableism I have around it. Just something about Spirit the Unicorn story, watching them navigate challenges and make choices. I don't know, it just has really helped. And I think specifically what has helped is, where's the guidebook? The self-worth message at the bottom of every card has been huge for me this year. That feature specifically, because again, working through these things and then actually executing anything on it has brought up a lot of feelings of shame for me. And so using a deck that gives me a self-worth message has just helped that so immensely. I love it so much. And the Unicorn's Journey Oracle does that as well. Also love that one, but I've just had this one longer and really like specifically use that one during that time. And again, it's ongoing, but there was a period of time this year where like that was my big mission, was to kind of unravel some of that for myself so that I could ask for accommodations elsewhere. And this really helped with that. So that was a huge victory for me this year, and Unicorn's Journey helped that. My cat's crying! Hold on. Must pause. See what the kitty needs. Okay, we are back with prompt number 7. Prompt number 7, that is the deck that taught me the importance of stillness. Now, for me this year, that was most definitely my own Sacred Grounds Oracle. Yes, still in this bag. Very interesting, my experience making this deck versus my two others. And I think teaching me stillness is the greatest way to put it. Even down to the fact of like just having it in this plain bag. Like that kind of just felt like enough for now. These are the backs. So what this oracle is I took images from my own garden and collaged them with statues, namely statues of Mary, there's Mary Magdalene, there's Anne, figures of that sort. And what really inspired me to do this, which I might get into in a later prompt, was I had so much fun making the Divine Ephemera Oracle, which is another collage divinity deck, but that has all, like, a whole mix of different gods and goddesses. And as I said, I have spent a lot of time with the figure of Mary this year, but as also like Mary Magdalene, and just kind of figures that I feel inspire the figure of Mary. And so taking that idea of the collaged divinity deck, while I was gardening this year, it just sort of got my mind thinking and taking these pictures, because it's one of my favorite things to do. Garden photography, it brings me so much joy. I love taking pictures of my plants and flowers in the spring and summer. And so I was kind of trying to think of a way to incorporate that into a deck. And this was where I landed. I saw an image of... I'm trying to actually think of the... No, you know what it was? I know what it was. I was using the Mysteries of Mary and the Mysteries of the Black Madonna, which utilizes recreations of different statues. And so my mind was kind of on that and using that in my garden. And it just got my mind thinking of, like, how do I see these different still moments in the... not the nature I create, but the nature I maybe am is steward the right word? Like a steward of? Just consider cultivating. The nature that I personally cultivate. That's the word I'm looking for. How do I relate those to an idea of spirituality and divinity? There was a lot of thinking about that this year, and especially this spring and summer, since for me that feeling of connection happens the most in my garden, and I wanted to kind of have a way to translate that into a tool. But in order to... this deck also took me by far the longest. This was probably like an entire calendar year in the making. I use photographs from both the spring and summer of 2024 and the spring and summer of 2025. This is, again, it's just, compared to my others, a while in the making. And so it took a lot of kind of moments of stillness and, like, really thinking about the concept, thinking about my thoughts on these different things, thinking of the keywords and kind of what those mean to me. And yeah, so it's like, not only the creation of it created stillness, but then also, at least how it works for me, creates moments of stillness, because I kind of purposely don't have a guidebook that goes along with this. I really wanted it to be a tool that felt expansive, with kind of that keyword or key phrase that at least my hope is that everyone can find meaning in, and pairing that with the image to kind of just sort of like really sink into the card. But a practice I did build with this, that it's still ongoing, slower now but ongoing, is that I would try to write a poem for each of my card pulls, with the goal of having a poem for every card, and that is something I will release as like a pseudo guidebook. So not to worry, that's still in the works, I haven't forgotten about it. But yes, I ended up releasing this before that was even anywhere near ready, because again, I just kind of hoped that it would be usable for others like it is for me, in the sense of like just sort of having something to think on. So yes, this deck definitely really taught me the importance of stillness and slowing down. That is the Sacred Grounds Oracle. All right. prompt number 8, the deck that gave me more questions than answers. That for me this year was definitely the Whales Can Save Us Oracle. Now, probably, or no, I know I'm taking this question very literally. Because on each of these cards, instead of a keyword or phrase, you get a question. And that is my favorite thing about this deck. I love a deck that poses a question. I've got quite a few decks that do so in the guidebook, but having an oracle where that's the message is the question. I find it really interesting, really thought-provoking, and there is a guidebook which does give you some interpretation, not a ton, but a little bit, just sort of like an expansion on the question, but a good half of each entry is another list of related questions. And so in my use of this deck, which I used this quite a bit this summer, I found that even when I looked into the guidebook, it didn't really feel like I was getting a straight... It was a guidebook that wasn't giving me an answer. It gave me more questions, literally, if that's what I wanted. But I really liked that about this deck. I think it really challenged me to either seek the answer for myself, just through my own thoughts, or using tarot to kind of flesh that out. It created some just really fun reading exercises and posed some really interesting questions. And I love the theme, I love the whales. This feels like my perfect ocean water deck. I love it so much. I love all the colors. Oh, it's so good. So yes, that was definitely the deck that gave me more questions than answers. The Whales Can Save Us Oracle. All right, number 9. The deck that taught me to notice the magic in the mundane. That deck for me this year is the Craft Felt Tarot. I love this tarot so much. And this is one too, I've noticed that even friends of mine who don't read tarot are not invested in this world in the way I am. This one caught their eye because of just how interesting the artwork is, that it's felt art, and the creator took a photograph, made it into a card, and it maintains that like 3D effect. It is so, so cool. And so why I selected this, there's 2 different reasons for why I think it taught me to notice the magic in the mundane. First of all, now this isn't necessarily the first deck I have that does this. Question mark? Yeah, no, the Song of the Grandmothers, on the card it has a haiku. But the guidebook for this it's a haiku. And that's all you get. And something about that I have felt so connected to and just find so much magic in, that in so few words, I feel the creator really succeeded in getting such a strong message across with their cards. And I think it was something that was a little unexpected, because nothing about the deck theme screams like, yes, of course it should have a haiku guidebook. But it just, I don't know, I think it really showed the different interests of the creator, the different creative expressions. So I thought that was really neat. But then the more, I guess, personal way it taught me to notice magic in the mundane is just through the felt itself. So I am a children's librarian. And while I don't personally do this anymore, a big common thing a lot of children's librarians do for their story times is create their own felt storyboard pieces. Like, I have truly been to workshops where either the whole time or a good chunk of the time is spent like learning to create felt board pieces, because it's a good tool to have something visual to go along with the story. Now, again, it's something I don't particularly utilize anymore because I don't do many classic story times. I don't find them to be super, like, the most effective way anymore. But regardless, I still use felt for a lot. Felt is a surprisingly large part of my job. And so having this deck that creates this art out of felt, I think has just brought that tool I use in a very, very mundane, professional way to a magical place of, like, it's just got me thinking of, like, what all the things you can portray with felt. It's not something I ever would have thought of, because for me it really stuck it in this place of professional. But using this deck, I don't know, it just makes felt seem so much more magical to me. Where I've even, like, last winter I made felt ornaments for all of my coworkers and my friends, and it was so much fun and such a good way to express. And there's a scarecrow contest in the town I work in, and I used felt to make the scarecrow. That was fun. Just all different things, and it's like, it has made me go to felt for so much more, because I'm like, wow, this is just, like, the best medium. I love it so much. It makes it feel so magical, and using this in a work context for me helps what I do feel more magical as well, in a world that I often feel like I spend myself, and I know probably a lot of other librarians in general feel this way, I spend too much time, I feel, justifying my purpose and what it is I do and why it matters. And so for me, this has kind of connected to that and reminds me of the why, I guess, like, and why I feel like my job feels so magical sometimes. So yes, that has definitely taught me to notice the magic in the mundane. The Craft Felt Tarot. Okay, I need tea. I'm talking a lot. Okay. Number 10, the deck that encourages me to embrace levity. This was no question. The Affirmators Tarot. This, oh my gosh. I use this, I've had this deck a very long time. It's one of the first decks that I would use to post. Oh my gosh. I'm wondering if anyone remembers this. What an OG. So my first channel name was Adventures in Metaphysics, and that came from a tarot Instagram account that I shared with my friend and coworker Rachel. Like, we were both we wanted to post, we were both nervous, so like, let's do it together. And both of us loved this deck, and so it was the first one that I really used to post anything. Just fun memories. So definitely an oldie but a goodie. It's one that I put down for quite a long time, and just, I don't know, something made me pick it up this year and remember how good it is and how much joy it brings me. Like, oh my gosh. This has that, like, flat, saturated color effect I feel like I talk about all the time. Same with, like, Joanna Nelson's decks. That's something in me feels so much pure joy when I see things like that. I don't know why, but I just do. And so I had quite a stretch of time where I was using this actually with the Little Bug Oracle by Joanna Nelson, and it just was like, anytime I was feeling down or just, I don't know, not my best, I pulled that duo out and it just made me feel better every time. And I think is another deck that just kind of reminds, like the Sassy Dragons, to just not take things so seriously. I love the voice this deck has through the guidebook. I love the images. It just, yeah, I think embracing levity is the perfect word. I went through a few bouts this year of burnout, and just feelings of depression due to that burnout. And this with the Little Bug Oracle and the Sassy Dragon, like those kinds of decks are what really kind of pulled me out of that. And just brought some color and brightness to my day. Like, even if that's all it did, there was still levity in that of starting my day with something so fun like this. I just love it so much. It makes me laugh out loud. I can't say enough good things. Even down to, like, the texture of the cardstock, the shape of the cards. Oh, it's just so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. And again, especially with that Little Bug Oracle, match made, I'm telling you. So, that is definitely the deck that encouraged me to embrace levity, and that is the Affirmators Tarot. Alright, we've got 2 more prompts here. This has been so fun. I'm so glad I'm doing this. I was putting it off for a hot second because, I don't know, sometimes I've been in a space of, like, we're talking about myself and the things that are happening feels uncomfy, which probably sounds like I'm lying, considering I have still been sharing, but I don't know. I really do love doing walkthroughs, but sometimes I need to acknowledge that that is a bit of a safety zone for me, where if I've got a string of, like, walkthrough after walkthrough, either one, I just have a lot that I need to review, and I want to get them out, because I'm excited about them, or I need to pause and kind of think, like, oh, is there something I know I do really want to share, but it just, like, the idea of doing it sounds like a lot, you know? So yes, very glad I'm doing this, all that to say. Okay, prompt number 11, the deck that shifted my practice. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this. It's the Weaver's Oracle. So, sometimes I mention it in my monthly wrap-up, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I forget. Honestly. There's the backs. But I have been doing Lisa Papez's envelope reading idea, which I think she got from someone else that I am not remembering, so sorry. Where she pulled at the beginning, in January, at the beginning of the year, or before January, I should say, she pulls 12 readings for herself and puts them in 12 envelopes, which I did last year and did enjoy it. I just didn't quite pick decks that I felt impactful in this kind of practice, and I did multiple decks. So what I did this year, I decided, you know what, this is a deck I've really wanted to just get into. It's a deck that really, I feel, needs a lot of slowness and thought and time. So I decided we're just going to do one card. I'm going to do my 12 envelopes, and we're just going to do a Weaver's card every month. And I feel like this has been a big year for me generally with a lot of different things, of finding a practice that brings me so much joy that I stick with it for a full year. Like my journaling planner upkeep practice. I love it so much. Kept up with it the full year. It wasn't even a question that I was going to get one for next year. This has felt the same. I get excited every single month to find out what the new card is. It feels like it gives me such a meaningful theme and story for the month. The guidebook, it is told in stories, and so the message is not handed to you in any way. It is completely kind of interpretation of the story given to you. And I have found that some months, it's like on my first reading, I get it right away. I know what it is I'm supposed to be getting out of it. But then I almost feel like it's been 50-50. Some months, it's like I'll read it, and at the end of that first reading, I'm kind of just like, I don't know. So then maybe like a week later I read it again, see how I feel. But often it's like I'll have to kind of go back at the end of the month, read it again, which I do either way. I read it again at the end of the month either way. And sometimes at the end of the month, if I did understand what it was saying at the beginning, sometimes it's the same at the end, sometimes it's different. And on those months where I don't get it in the beginning, I often find that when I read it at the end of the month again, it's almost like I needed to live out that month to understand and make the connection. And so it's really it's been a cool practice of getting this mixed bag of feeling like I have what's it called? I don't want to use the word fortune, but I cannot think of the other word for it. Like a fortune for the month to look out for. And sometimes I don't have that, and sometimes it is purely a reflection. But regardless, I have just found the reflection coming from this to be so impactful. At the end of the month, I have a page in my tarot journal I keep blank right at the beginning that I put an image of the card in at the beginning of the month, and at the end is just a free journal of like how I felt like that card came up through the month. It's just been so good. It has really gotten me excited. It was also really gotten me excited to kind of think about, okay, what do I want to do the same? What do I want to do different for next year? Because I'm very proud of myself that I stuck with this for a full year. I am not going to have the expectation on myself, though, to say, like, yeah, let's do it again next year. Like, no, I do still need change. But I've really loved this, and it's got big shoes to fill. Kind of when I'm thinking towards what's going to be next, it's like, wow, I don't know. I'm going to have to really think about that. So, yes, this has really shifted my practice throughout this year. I've loved it so much. It has really made that idea of the card of the month to work for me first of all and be really impactful, because I've done the year ahead spread thing. I never go back and check it. It just doesn't happen. So this has been a really great discovery. So yes, Weaver's Oracle. Okay, so we're at the last prompt, number 12, the deck that jump-started a creative project. So yes, I told you we'd circle back around to this one. The Divine Ephemera Oracle. This jump-started, as I said before, the Sacred Grounds Oracle. I love this deck. I loved creating this deck. This is another, but this is all found art, purely. And in this oracle, I paired a divine figure with a plant. And sometimes the relation had to do directly with their myth. Sometimes it just was my own interpretation of what the plant means versus what the god or goddess stands for. And so this one does have a guidebook. It's a very sparse guidebook. And that is intentional, because again, I want there to be room for exploration and space for people to kind of add in their own meanings. So the guidebook gives you like a sentence of what they are a god or a goddess of, like what they stand for, and then you get some keywords to go along with the plant. And I feel, again, it leaves room for personal interpretation, for it to go different directions every time you pull that card. That's kind of been my experience, which has been very interesting. And so I love this deck. I'm proud of this one. Don't ask, I don't know where the files went for it though. This is an aside. I am trying to also put my decks on GameCrafter. I've got Cottage Witch, including all of the expansions. I've got Sacred Grounds. I don't know where I use Canva. I don't know where my Canva document went for this. So, love. So if anyone has any experience, like can I offload off of make playing cards? Question. 'Cause otherwise, we're in trouble. Not really. It's on make playing cards, but I would love for everything to also be on Game Crafter. Anyways, that's an aside. So this is something I created in, well, this took me a very long time too, actually, I should say. Maybe I think I said that Sacred Grounds took me the longest. I don't know if that's actually true. There was a lot of like starting and stopping with both oracles. They might have even overlapped a little bit. Because making this deck got me thinking about this topic and my own garden. And I like to use this in my own garden. I like seeing individual plants as related to individual divinity figures, but then it also got me thinking about, okay, but what if my whole garden got related to one figure that maybe is a bit more like an amalgamation of a few figures, or can be a little bit ambiguous so people can insert their own ideas of like what it is. It got me thinking about that, and so really jump-started that other creative project of creating the Sacred Grounds and using the images from my own garden and making my own connection. For me, it was Mary Magdalene, but using those statues and kind of, again, thinking about how, at least how I feel, and this is something I have read, it's not my own idea by any means, that the figure of Mary perhaps is like, I don't know if inspired by is really the right word, but by like a few other goddess figures in different mythology. So that aspect, but then also using those statues and kind of more seeing it as a representation of like divine feminine, just, I don't know, or empress energy when it comes to gardening. I don't know, this deck got me thinking about that, and so I don't think, if I didn't make this deck, Sacred Grounds wouldn't exist. And it is so interesting to like look at the chronology of my decks and see how the timelines like are linear but then blend together, because then through making these decks I realized, oh my gosh, Cottage Witch does not have enough flowers, so then it was like I'd go back, and I love it. I love making decks. Sacred Grounds, when did that come out? I don't know, sometime this year. But it had been ready for a while. I just was sort of, I don't know, wasn't ready to release it. And so this year has really felt like a year too of, there wasn't so much deck creating really going on, just more using the tools I've made, finding meaning out of them, and just loving them and enjoying them. This is actually, I'm thinking about, for my 2026 monthly cards, I am thinking about using this deck. I do think that would be very interesting to kind of go from the Weavers, where you get a pretty extensive story that, again, it's not giving you a straight meaning, but you get a lot of story, to something like this where, again, I purposely kept the guidebook pretty sparse. I think it might be a really good way to very extensively experience the intention I had of it being kind of an open thing. Anyways, so that is my deck that jump-started a creative project, the Divine Ephemera Oracle. And that was the last prompt. So I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to see more VRs. I loved watching Kate's video. I'll have it linked below, as I said, but if you are someone who doesn't like making videos, I don't know, if you're on Instagram, I think it'd be so cool to make a post. I would love to see that. Or if you don't do any of the above, maybe in the comments on my video or on Kate's video, I don't know. I love hearing other people's answers to things like this, and again, this tag that Kate made I think is just so extra thoughtful. I was so surprised. On her video I commented, like, I just appreciate her so much given my very heavy earth air sign chart. I was intensely surprised to find out that she is also very heavily air earth sign. Like, oh my gosh. That makes me want to know, like, what are the intricacies of our charts? Not to say that I don't feel I'm a deep thinker, but I don't, maybe it's just a skill to build, of really stopping to consider anything and everything. But yes, I had such a good time with this. But other than that, I hope you're having a great day so far, and I'll see you again very soon.